Okay, so I know better than most people that you need a budget, and that's from personal experience. We all need a budget, really. I tried paying off my debt just winging it for the first few months, and that was a complete fail because I had no idea how much I was actually spending. But now over the last year, I've paid off over $25,000 of debt, and I'm in a much better place and have a much better handle on how much I'm spending each month. But I've never used cash envelopes, and here's why. Hello everybody, my name's Anna and this is Anna Does Money, a channel where I talk about money making and money saving strategies as well as my personal debt recovery journey. If you've been on debt and budgeting and money YouTube, chances are you've come across cash envelopes. And for good reason, they work. These have been around for a while and have been popularized by none other than Dave Ramsey. Basically, what you do is every time you get a paycheck, you take that out in cash and you separate it into these different envelopes with various spending and saving categories. So you would have an envelope for your rent money, for groceries, for utilities, for like maybe saving for a vacation or something. And as with any budget, you will allocate how much money you need to be putting in each of those envelopes, and you'll just divide your paycheck up into those envelopes. Then when you go do groceries, for example, you would take that grocery envelope and whatever's in there is how much money you have to spend on groceries. So if you got $100 in and your bill comes out to $105, well, you gotta put something back because $100 is your budget. And this way you stay really disciplined with how much money you're spending in each of the categories. The other part of the psychology behind it is that you're actually less likely to spend money when it's in cash. There's a study that came out of the University of Toronto where they showed that the pain receptors for using cash are different than the ones that you would paying like with a credit card or something like that. So essentially you hurt more when you're using cash versus cards. So another reason why this system is so popular. Okay, so if it's all that great, why don't I use it? Well, firstly, because frankly, I'm a lazy person. My paycheck comes direct deposit into my bank account, and going to the bank and having to take out cash is a whole extra step that I don't have time for. The bank is a good 10-minute drive away from me. I don't have a car, and walking, it would probably take me like an hour and a bit. And I live in Canada, so sometimes it's cold and rainy and snowy and all that. So it's just not practical for me to go and take out cash. Now, even if I was gonna go do that and I'm like, okay, but it's worth it because you know what? It's gonna make it easier for me to stick to my budget. Say I got that money out, well, now the problem is that my rent, my utilities, so like electricity and water and all that, my phone bills, all of that comes directly out of my bank accounts each month. So it wouldn't make sense for me to take that cash out, put it in the envelopes, only to have to put it back in when that money came out of my bank. Okay, so of course I could leave that money in the bank and figure out, all right, what's left. But what's left for me isn't much, pretty much just the groceries that I don't have automatically removed from my account and any miscellaneous spending. So I always try to budget like a couple $100s for any miscellaneous expenses that might come up. So things like garbage bags or like toothpaste or shampoo that you might not have every month. So I could take those two items out and put it into cash envelopes, but it just doesn't seem worth it to do it just for those two items. As for my savings and my student loan, my personal loan, all of that automatically also gets taken out of my bank account. The savings automatically come out the second the paycheck hits my bank and is transferred to a totally different bank account. And I think for me, this is actually preferable over taking the money out and having it in envelopes for a couple of reasons. In that scenario, I think it's actually easier for me to spend the cash than the money sitting into this account, because that account takes about 3 to 5 business days for it to transfer back into my regular checkings account. So that 3 to 5 days definitely deters me from like insta spending and like YOLOing and trying to spend my savings, versus I think if I had it in cash, I'd probably spend that more because it's readily available. The other reason I like to have my savings in a different account is that I can make interest on it. So whether it's through like robo investing like Wealthsimple or just like a high interest savings account, you're gonna make more money on your cash if it's in one of these types of accounts where you're earning interest versus if it's in cash. If it's in cash, you're actually losing money over long periods of time because of inflation. Of course, if you were just getting started with your debt journey, you're probably not gonna have savings to put into investment accounts and stuff like that because you're gonna wanna put everything towards debt repayment, and that totally makes sense. But just if you're getting started with cash envelopes and you eventually get to the point where you are having savings, it might be worth considering putting that into a different savings account, like a high interest savings account or an investment account. So what do I do instead? I just use a budgeting app. I like Mint. It basically same thing. I can put in budgets for each of my line items and it connects to all my bank accounts. So whenever I spend, it shows me how much I have left for that month for each category. I know there's a lot of other really great apps to help you keep track. There's even some that mimic like the envelope system, but just digitally that you can use. However, if you feel like you've tried the whole budgeting apps thing and it just doesn't work for you, you just keep spending the money anyway, totally go the cash envelopes way. I'm definitely not discrediting this system. It's just, it doesn't work for me with how my finances are set up. It's a super great way to stay disciplined and make sure that you think twice about what you're spending each month. And there's something about just having like a physical stack of cash and seeing that dwindle as you spend that like just triggers something different in your mind. So I totally get it. I see the appeal of it. It just doesn't work for me. And eventually, I think we are moving to such a cashless society where you will need to pay things online and you will need to learn how to use credit at some point in your life. So this is a good baby step, I think, to use cash envelopes, but eventually you want to start learning how to use plastic cards again, since that's much of what our society is set up on. As with everything to do with money and finances, it is such a personal journey. So just find what works best for you. I'm just sharing my example of how I'm doing it. That doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. That's why I think it's so great. We have so many different examples on YouTube of what people are doing with their money, so you can figure out what works best. That's all for today, folks. If you've enjoyed this, please leave me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Otherwise, I'll see you all next week on Anna Does Money. Peace out, dudes.